Hi, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to The Wandering Reader. Today I'm going to be doing a video inspired by April over on Getting Hygge With It. I just recently subscribed to her channel and I've been watching her videos and she's really great. I'll link her channel down below so you can go and check her out. She posted a video a couple of days ago entitled Life-Changing Non-Fiction, and it really kind of got me thinking about the non-fiction that I've read, especially recently, and kind of what I've enjoyed, and I wanted to bring you some recommendations. So I don't read a whole bunch of non-fiction. In fact, it's only in the last, I would say, maybe 6 months or so that I've really got into reading a bit more non-fiction. I tend to have a non-fiction book on the go all of the time. But I've really enjoyed what I've read. So I've got 6 non-fiction books to show you and recommend to you today. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I absolutely loved this book and I absolutely adore the film as well. I read this probably about 2 years ago now. This is the true story of a girl called Cheryl Strayed who loses her mum to cancer, and her marriage breaks up very shortly afterwards, and that's because her life goes on this kind of downward spiral once her mum dies, and so she decides to get back to herself to walk the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a walk that you can do from New Mexico all the way up to the Canadian border, I think sort of in Oregon, I believe. So she decides to walk this to kind of find herself again. And it's just such a great book. You follow all of her hardships, it looks at her life before and what it's like on the trail, and it really kind of inspired me to do something like this. I don't think I ever could, and I don't know whether I'd ever get the opportunity to do that, but reading her story really made me think, oh yeah, it would be such an achievement to do something like that. And like I said, I've seen the film a couple of times now. I've got it on DVD downstairs actually, and I really enjoy the film as well. Reese Witherspoon plays Cheryl. I think she does a really good job of it. So I would say definitely, if you haven't heard of this book, or you've heard of it but you haven't really thought about picking it up, I definitely would recommend it. This is a really good place to start for non-fiction if you're not a non-fiction fan, because it's got this narrative to it, but also, yeah, just a great read. The next one on my list is In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park. I've mentioned this book a couple of times on my channel now. This is Yeonmi's story of how she escaped from North Korea, and sort of the journey that she made going from North Korea through to China and what happened to her there. And she talks about her childhood growing up in North Korea, and you've got to get an insight into that country and what it's like to live there. We don't see an awful lot of that. It's kind of really an alien place to us. So it was really interesting reading about that, but also about how she got out of North Korea, and you kind of think, well, that's great, you know, to escape is great, but then she gets caught up in all of, you know, her mother is raped as soon as they leave North Korea, and you know, she goes through so many more hardships, and it's just it's almost like a life-affirming story. It's kind of, yeah, if you can get through that, you'll get through anything, but it's so inspiring and just, yeah, absolutely fantastic. So that's one I would definitely recommend. Number 3 on my list is The Last Act of Love by Kathy Rensenbrink. I think that's how you pronounce that. I read this last year, at some point last year, really enjoyed it. This is Kathy's story of her brother, who is has a life-changing car accident, which means that he is never the same. He can't do anything for himself, he's not the same mentally, and it's about how the family cope with that. It's really brutal at times, it's really sad, but also really eye-opening at the same time, you know, caring for somebody with these life-shattering injuries. being a member of a family with somebody with these injuries and who can't take care of themselves. You know, it's that kind of idea of what's it like being a member of that family. Totally fantastic, really, really well written. I really enjoyed it. It's only a short one as well, so it didn't take me that long to get through. But that's a really great non-fiction read. A few that I've read recently, the first one is I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai and Christina Lamb. This is the story of Malala's life. She was the girl who was shot by the Taliban. So it talks about her life growing up in Pakistan, what it was like under the rule of the Taliban, what it was like growing up as a girl in Pakistan, and then kind of what happened to her being shot and coming over to the UK. Was fascinating. Such a great insight into what living in a country like that is like, how they view life, you know, things that we don't get to see in the news, and she kind of tells it in here. I've done a full review of this on my channel, so I'll link that down below so you can hear a few more of my thoughts, but I thought that was really amazing. Then I've got here When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. Again, I've reviewed this on my channel, so I'll leave a link to that down below. This was published in January, and it is about a doctor who is diagnosed with cancer. So the first half of the book talks about how he became a doctor and his journey to choosing to become a doctor, and then what his training was like, and how he learned to become a doctor, not just through the training but also through the kind of emotional training that he gave himself and that you need to be a doctor. And then the second half of the book is about how he was diagnosed with cancer and about how he coped with that, and what he did with that diagnosis, and how his family copes with it and things like that. So you're seeing life through a doctor's eyes and then through a patient's eyes, and that was a really unique perspective on, you know, cancer and life and death and that sort of thing. Really beautifully written. I said in my review, and like I said, I'll link that down below, that it's such a shame that we're not going to see anything else written by him. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. And then the last non-fiction book that I'm going to share with you is this little one, We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I talked about this in my March wrap-up. I read this last month. This is a really short, sort of 45-page book based on a TED talk that she gave, where she talked about why we should all be feminists, and about kind of women's roles in different parts of the world, and you know, how women are treated and things like that. It's just, yeah, for such a small book, for such a short speech, I think it runs for about 30 minutes if you watch the video on TED Talks. It packs a real punch. It's really powerful. She's got such a lot to say, such interesting things to say about why we should all be feminists, why we should be bringing our children up to be feminists. So that was really great. So there you go, they were 6 non-fiction recommendations that I had for you. Have you read any of these? What are your thoughts on them? Have you got any non-fiction recommendations for me? I'd really love to know. I'm really kind of getting more into non-fiction as I go through this year, so I'd love to have your recommendations. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.